Hello, Code Nation students. Welcome to the webinar for 01.2. This is the portfolio second lesson in the opening unit. We'll be reviewing some HTML and CSS, as well as introducing Glitch, the new coding platform that you'll be using. But right now, if you haven't, pull up your agenda from class, sign in to Slack, and then there should be a linked class Slido poll. So you'll want to go on your actual slide deck that is linked in the agenda for your fellowship. And then you can do that voting there for whatever your class mascot, Google font, and company colors. So again, that will be on the actual slide deck. So if you want to pause this video, take some time to just kind of do the do now items, and then you can come back in a few minutes. All right, so if you're coming back from the do now, like I said, we're in Unit 1, Session 2. Today's goal will be coders will review HTML, CSS, and layout positioning concepts. These came from Intro to Web Development, so we'll do a little bit of review. And then also we'll be learning how to navigate the Glitch IDE. And the IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides. We went over the two goals. So again, introduction to Glitch, and then reviewing HTML and CSS concepts. So when I say introduction to Glitch, that's because we're saying goodbye to pop code. Pop code is great for learning how to code. You all use that in Intro to Web Development. But for fellowship, we want something a little bit more professional because we're giving you that experience of what it's like to work and code in the tech industry. So definitely time for an upgrade. That vocabulary word I talked about just a few slides ago, integrated development environment, is a software application that provides comprehensive facilities to the computer programmers for software development. An IDE normally consists of a source code editor, built automation tools, and a debugger. So Glitch, we will be using Glitch in fellowship. So think pop code is now being replaced with Glitch. This is a cloud-based collaborative programming environment that allows users to create multiple page websites. So that's a lot more advanced than pop code. Import local files, utilize any framework or library, and share and collaborate on code. So when we get set up with Glitch, if you have the slide deck open, you're going to click that link. If you want to just go to glitch.com, that works as well. Then you're going to click the sign in button, and you'll sign into Glitch with your GitHub account. So if I click this link, I open up Glitch, I'm going to sign up, and then you'll click that GitHub. I'm not going to do that because I already have an account, so I'm going to click sign in, but you'll do GitHub. And so as you're getting signed in, oh, it popped up the login. Computer's moving a little slow. But right now, if you need to pause, that's fine. Go ahead and get logged in. Again, you're using your GitHub account, and this is really important because it will link your two accounts in all of your work. So really make sure that you use GitHub. So when we create a new project in Glitch, you can click New Project in the upper right corner, and you'll see that up here next to my profile picture. And then from there, you can check out the files on the left. So the README will contain the instructions. So think like the left side in pop code instructions, then your index.html, script.js, JavaScript, and style.css. We can add new files to Glitch, so multiple HTML pages. We can host images, audio, or video files as well. Save your project in Glitch. So all Glitch projects will auto-save in your account, just like pop code. So you can change the name of your project by clicking random name in the top left corner and changing it to something that makes more sense. The show button will display a preview of your website, and the share button will give you a live link that you can use to view your site. But what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to remix a project in Glitch. So again, you're going to want to go to the main slide deck that was linked in the agenda if you're following along in the slides, and then you're going to open up this link directly. When you open it, you should be logged in at this point because you linked your GitHub account, and then we have it right here, 1.2 exercise. So then it says click remix this in the lower right hand corner to make your own copy of the project. Click on the new name Glitch gave your project in order to rename it. That's something that makes sense to you. Just like we did in pop code, you're renaming it something that makes sense, and then follow the guided practice directions in the README. So again, I'm going to view source, loading project, and then we see the remix to edit on the right side. Now, this is basically so we can edit this project. And I know it's loading for a second. And as we said, we have the files over here, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, and then the README with the instructions. So I'll take you, if you need to pause the video for a second, just kind of get that set up, and then you can go ahead and begin renaming it. Alrighty, and I'm gonna go to the next slide. One thing that we'll wanna do is we'll wanna update the editor settings. Now, sometimes these are automatically clicked, but we wanna make sure it is. So make sure refresh app on changes is turned off in your editor settings, or you'll experience timeout issues. So this is probably already selected, and we wanna click it so it's not selected. So if you look back in the code, I'm gonna look at share, and then we have embed this project, share files. There we go. And so you click the project name. I see new project, no, remix project, no, switch, but we want to go down to refresh app on changes. We'll unclick that. And then do this whenever you create a project in Glitch. So as we go into different units and you start a new project, just make a habit of that. Just like we make a habit of logging into Popcode, same type of thing. Alrighty. We are now going to do a little bit of review, so you can kind of just take a pause on the Glitch work right now and just take a look at these slides as we go through. A reminder that HTML gives our content structure. That's why we have the skeleton example of the dinosaur. And then CSS tells the website what it's supposed to look like. So the style, what does it visually look like? So we have this example here to kind of remind ourselves HTML structure, CSS style. When we think of HTML versus CSS in the syntax, so like in the actual symbols we use for code, we know the big difference is HTML, we use angle brackets, and CSS, we use curly brackets. We use the slash in HTML when we close a tag. We use semicolons in CSS. We use quotes and the equal sign in HTML, but we use colons in CSS. So just some reminders, and again, these are in your reference table, so you can always refer to the reference table if you kind of forget. And then remember, we have a CSS rule set. So we have our selector, which is the H1, so taking that HTML element. We have the property, and then the value. So the property here is color. We want to change the color, and then the value would be, well, what color is that? And this all equals a rule. So again, just a little review on class selectors. Here we see an example. We have an unordered list item, and then we have different items here. So it looks like steak, ice cream, rice, brownies. They're using class selectors to kind of identify dinner or dessert. And then we would see the CSS making the changes based off of those class selectors. So for the dinner items that have dinner in the class ID, then we would see the color blue. And so forth for dessert with pink. And then we can think about multiple class attributes. And so here we have the HTML, the header blue for news, header green for videos. And so these are, again, calling out that selector. See the syntax of the dot blue. And then also in the CSS, again, for the dot green. Both of those are in CSS, but the classes are what's different. And just a reminder that multiple classes are helpful when designing, just like we see here, nav bars, headers, or footers. And Google Fonts, how do we get these cool fonts into our code? So the link to the font goes in the HTML head tag. So you see that there, and link to that font family. To embed a font, copy the code into the head of your HTML. So that was from the font family in Google. We use the property and value in the CSS. So again, font-family, semicolon, and then let's say Chelsea Market was the font you wanted to use. So again, this is just a little refresher on Google Fonts. In a good quick Google search, you could figure this out pretty quickly. And again, we love to encourage you all to be using your reference table. Little refresher on box model. Remember, the content is what's inside. So we see the image and the content in this example of painting. Then the border. The border is what's going around the content, but then in between that border is padding. So we see that kind of white section in this, on both of these pictures actually, that functions as the padding, kind of that buffer zone. And then the margin would be in between these items. So again, we see margin, it says 10px as an example. So that space in between the two images. Then we see the border thickness, if we were using like that wood frame as the example, and the padding is that buffer in between. Divs and Flexbox. We encourage you to really review this in your reference table and kind of analyze the relationship between parents and children. But remember, we nest the elements as children of a parent div, and then we use display semicolon flex on rule on the parent div. And then you can use the justify content property on the parent div. So we have a space around example. Now we've moved to a flex start, and then we've moved to a flexed end. So on the right side, flex center in the middle. So just a refresher on Flexbox. And again, check out your reference table or do a little Google search if you want to pause this video and refresh on that. So lightning question. What we're going to have you do right now is, speaking of that reference table, in the linked slide deck, go ahead and click CodeNation reference table that's linked there, and then see if you can find Flexbox. So see if you can find Flexbox on that reference table. So again, if you're opening it up, you should see something like this document that is loading up. It's our reference table 2021. One little trick I like to do when I'm using Google Docs is control find. So I could go command find, and then I would put Flexbox in. And then, oh my goodness, I find it right there. And we're seeing some of those examples that we just talked about in the CSS section. So take your time right now. If you're doing that kind of lightning question activity, you can just pause this video and then just reflect on these two questions. What page is it? So I just kind of selected it there. So the actual page. And then how would you write the code to add Flexbox to a div with the class name footer? So just kind of reflect on those two questions. And then when you're ready to move on, we'll keep going. At this point in your slide deck, in class, students would have gone to breakout rooms to be doing independent practice. And that's just kind of continuing from the glitch project that we used before, and then following the independent practice directions in the README. So right now, for your independent practice, you can go ahead, go back to your glitch document. I'm just making mine below my Zoom real quick. And then we have the independent practice right here. So your guided practice, and I realize that you may not have seen, we didn't do like the modeling of the guided practice here. And so you may want to start with the guided practice to start, and you can find that fellowship motto and an image for the mascot if your class did this. They may not have, but they might have linked it in the agenda. But if not, you can jump to independent practice. And you'll just work through these tasks like you normally would in pop code with the instructions, but think the README here are the instructions. So it says HTML. So the first couple items, then I would go to my index HTML. Alrighty, so right now you will be working on your independent practice. We'll give you some work time. If you want to pause this video, that'd be a great time. And you can just take the next 10 to 15 minutes to work through those README directions. Alrighty, so if you're coming back and you had finished the independent practice and you followed those directions in the README, we are coming back from what would be your break. But if you haven't taken a break, please do. If you need to get some water, use the restroom, just kind of stretch for a little bit. But if you're ready to go, then just keep playing the video and we'll continue on in the lesson. So just a little alumni spotlight. Remember, we like to include these throughout the year so we can see different students that have been a part of our program and just interesting quotes or perspectives they share. And so this one talks from Kiera, and she says, before joining CodeNation, I didn't see myself being a coder. It was something that society had not really allowed women to explore. So kind of speaking to that idea of diversity and kind of these opportunities we want to create for people of all backgrounds, and that includes our female identifying students. All right, so from our spotlight, we will be jumping into project time. So this is a chance for you to continue on your glitch and your portfolio and to continue working on that and just basically have a good amount of time to get things ready. And so during this time, in your class linked slide deck, there may be some example projects that they linked in there from previous students or ones that volunteers had worked on. So please check that out in the project planning slide and see what examples that you can kind of draw upon for inspiration to kind of give you ideas of what you want to do with your portfolio. And then this would be, if you've done your project time, you're wrapping up, you've been working for about half an hour, or sorry, no, this would not be after your project time. These questions are about the projects that you're looking at. And so your program manager might have these questions or might have something a little different. But again, just check the lightning question slide following the project planning. And that's just to kind of reflect on what did you notice in those portfolios? What were strong characteristics? What are some things that maybe you already know how to do that you saw in terms of HTML and CSS? And then what are some things that maybe you need to review in order to make it function better. So before if you go to project work time, you've looked at kind of an example model projects. Some things that we kind of like to think of a pre-work time stand-up is how are you feeling about today? What did you learn? So today we reviewed a lot of HTML and CSS. We introduced Glitch to you. So what about those things might still be confusing, and just kind of reflect and be cognitive of that. And then what are your goals for this work time? So just set up some clear goals, like I want to get this amount done on the portfolio. I want to get this many multi-web pages finished. And whatever that might be. Now, we need a project set up in GitHub. So it's going to be important that you follow along here. You should already be logged into Glitch, but we're going to open up GitHub as well. And you might have logged into that when you logged into Glitch originally. So you're going to click this linked. And so go to, again, your program manager slide deck that's linked in the agenda. And you're going to click this link out of this slide. So project setup GitHub. It may not be exactly slide 38, but it will be close. And then you'll open that up. While that's loading, what you're going to do is step 2. After it's loaded, you're going to click fork button in the upper right-hand corner, and this creates a new copy in your account. Then you can check to make sure you made the copy correctly by looking for your GitHub name on the top left in the URL. So let's go ahead. I just opened that link. I'm now going to fork in this upper right corner. And yes, it said you already forked Portfolio Starter, so I'm going to open that because I did it, but then you'll say yes. And then we forked it here, and I see my name up here, right? So that lets me know, okay, I'm on the right track. Now we're going to copy that link copy the link you forked to your GitHub. So this one up at the top. And then we're going to copy that, and then let's look at what we do in Glitch. Then we're going to go to Glitch. We're going to log into our account. So if I open my account, I'm logged in. I'm going to go new project. And then I'm going to put import from GitHub. And then I'm just going to copy and paste that in there. So we copied and pasted that in. I'm going to go back to the slide while that loads in case that was a little confusing. So you go to Glitch, you logged in, click new project in the upper right corner, and then you're going to copy and paste that GitHub link that you had created when you forked in GitHub. And then again, we can rename the project so it's something that makes sense. And then just begin reading through the README. So again, here we go, Unit 1, Online Portfolio. I have my README. If I want to change the name, we might want to change that to just something that we kind of reminds ourselves of what the project is, so maybe Portfolio. And then here we have show. We don't need to go into that right now, but feel free to explore. And so again, we have our README. So this is going to function as like the directions, whether it be a project or an individual lesson when you would do in Popcode. Now we're going to do it in Glitch, and we have the README there for your assignment portfolio. And so again, we've renamed it. We've read through the README. You're kind of getting the instructions and seeing what is being expected for our portfolio. Then what you're going to do is after your work time, you're going to get project time after this, but then you'll submit your GitHub username and you'll submit your link to your Glitch project here. So there should be a linked slide for your program manager, your actual class, not this webinar. And you'll go ahead and click those links and submit it there. You can also Slack your program manager and send it to them that way if you're unsure, but try to just read through the agenda and read through the slides of your program because they should have clear directions on where you're submitting. Okay, so right now you have project work time. You have at least 30 minutes, probably because this webinar goes a little bit quicker than actual class. You probably have an hour. So just try to really spend quality work time and finish on working your project planning doc. So work on finishing that. If you haven't, add information about yourself, 2 of the 2 HTML pages, give your HTML elements class names, create a nav bar using Flexbox, add CSS colors and fonts to style your pages with a theme, and then read the README for more ideas and extensions. So that's what you're doing right now. You're kind of going through and working on this project. Again, I know that you're watching this webinar because you missed class, so you're probably doing a lot of this independently, but be checking the class resources, your agenda, the Slack channel, the slide deck that you've been following along from your actual class, and there will be more specific information that relates to your class and program. Okay, so you can pause the video at this point if you're going to work on the project for the next half an hour to hour, But then let's say, okay, you just did project work time, you got a lot done, you really worked hard on your project. We're just going to kind of reiterate, what did we do today? So our lesson highlight for the day is reviewing HTML, CSS, and layout positioning concepts. And then also we learned how to navigate the Glitch IDE. That's the coding environment we'll be using. And then you actually begun working on your portfolio today, which is super exciting. That means the coding, the work has begun. So post-work time stand-up, just right now to yourself, kind of reflect on these questions. How are you feeling about today? Did you meet those goals? Did you get some of the things you wanted to get done on your portfolio? Did you learn anything new? What was challenging? Maybe some things you kind of forgot over the summer. What do you maybe need to spend a little bit of independent time and kind of refreshing up code-wise? And then sadly, you're watching this webinar because you missed class, but we'd love to do shout-outs. So normally, in class, you would get shout-outs from volunteers, program manager, and students. And then do check the last slide for any urgent program announcements that are specific from your program manager. So do be sure to check that announcement slide. And then I would just follow up with your program manager, let them know, hey, I watched the webinar, I'm getting caught up. Is there anything else that I should do? Thank you so much for listening and going through this webinar, and best of luck, and we'll hope to see you in class next week.